Okay, we are now recording.
Okay, next slide. You're multitasking for sure. Okay, and so I just wanted to share this. This is our website. We have been consistently putting up more information. For instance, work that's done by consultants in the past looking at special education in Austin. We have a Facebook group. There's the title. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can send questions, emails, connect with us via that email. So that's kind of the initial intro to the Coalition for Special Education Equity in AISD. And now I'm going to throw to VELA, and then I'll come back. I have a couple of more slides that are about the current situation before we open up. So I'd like to introduce Maria Hernandez from VELA. I have known Maria for several years. She is a hero to parents of children with disabilities. She works with families and helps them navigate the complicated world of special education, helps them become better advocates to get services for their children and to feel more empowered and happy kind of in this world we're all sharing. So she is a former speech pathologist in Austin ISD and sort of saw on the inside that parents weren't being very successful about getting the services that their students needed. And she recognized that she could help fill the gap by creating an organization dedicated to training up parents in how to advocate for their students in special education. So, Maria Hernandez.
Thank you, Deb. Always very generous with your introduction, and happy to be here with everybody today and getting to share a little bit about how we can support one another, support ourselves if we're a parent, and support families. So Timmy, I think we're actually going to be on slide 8 because I think Deb's going to come back to this after I'm done talking about VELA. So if you don't mind skipping ahead a couple of slides, that would be great. Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, we are a nonprofit organization that partners a lot with Austin ISD, also with other districts. But our goal, like Deb said, is primarily to focus on making sure that the parent of the child with the disability has the knowledge, the empowerment, the resilience, the resources that they need to move forward. And obviously we were doing that pre-COVID. We are innovating and shape-shifting like all of us are doing to make sure that we're supporting families now that things look so different. And so we have been, since we did our Make It Matter, we've run a needs assessment with our families to get a better sense of what it is that folks are needing. And results of that are different across our different groups of folks, primarily our Spanish-speaking families that are receiving special education services. And this needs assessment we ran 2 weeks ago, we're really at the time, as you guys can imagine, really focused on food and income. So coming back to kind of that basic level of needs and stabilizing families. When we surveyed our English-speaking families, a lot of the families were also concerned about income, but more so showing a great need for resources and support around caregiver mental health as well, because obviously we've lost our respite opportunities and we've lost our opportunities for breaks. And so we're shape-shifting our programming to address that, and we'll be doing some workshops coming up, which I'll share. But one of the things, I know Deb's going to talk about some of the concerns that have come up, but I just wanted to share some of the things that we've been discussing with families right now in terms of what can we do as parents that are at home to move through this. And everybody is having a different experience with their services. So Timmy, if you'll go to next slide, please. Awesome. So this is obviously thinking through it from what is it that we can tell parents. And again, if you're a parent yourself, hopefully this is something that gives you a sense of control. I think we're all looking for a sense of ground right now. But the first thing, I think we want to kind of move forward very quickly into how do I survive right now, and then what will fall look like? And we want to get a sense of what tools and resources can I gather right now to know within the unknown. So the very first thing that we're talking to families about is understand where you were before this happened. So what we're calling just understanding your baseline, or knowing, getting your knowns together. So what was your child working on before, right? We transitioned to spring break. How are they doing with that? And with what level of support was that happening? And if we were lucky enough to have an ARD meeting in the spring and that feels really fresh and updated, then great. If not, then we can also look at or request a most recent progress report that'll tell us how we're doing specifically on those goals that were in the child's IEP. And I know we talk about individualized education plan, thinking about special ed, but this is also the case for families that have a 504 plan, right? What was your most recent meeting about the 504 plan? How is it that you were doing? So that you know, okay, this is what February said about where we were. And then really looking at that, the most recent IEP, individualized education plan that you have, and looking at how were we doing in terms of strengths and needs on those goal areas? And then what, again, were the goals and with what level of support? Because it's very, as we're getting packets or Zoom calls and check-ins, it's very easy to feel like this isn't working or this part is working. So the first thing is, what were we supposed to be doing? So that's kind of like figuring out the baseline and getting a sense of that. And then document, right? So get a notebook, however it is that you document. If you're typing on the computer or getting a notebook. I know for a lot of our families that don't have a lot of access to technology right now, we're recommending just find whatever notebook you have at home and just start almost writing down, right? Like if there was a packet that was distributed, or maybe you're starting teletherapy and it's really hard, your kiddo's nonverbal, or something isn't working, or something is working really well, that we're taking really good specific notes on that, because it's going to be really hard with everything that we're moving through to remember what is the thing that is going well, and then also here's all the opportunities where my child didn't get to do the thing, or we sat down and I had to literally sit adjacent to my child to get them to be successful. So we've missed 2 weeks of this service, or we haven't been able to really benefit from it. Or, you know what, I've realized that the visual aids we were using don't work at home. And what's actually working now is a different type of number schedule. Those things are going to be impossible for us to remember in this COVID fog that we're all in. So date it and be as specific as possible as you can, because this will help as you're going back into, once we're back all together face to face, or if you're getting to have or scheduling an ARD meeting. So a notebook, nothing fancy, but again, baseline, where were we, what were we supposed to be doing, with what levels of support, does that make sense to me? Documenting based on what it is that you're getting or not getting and how your child is doing. And then finally communicate, right? So if you have made contact, or someone's made contact with you from your campus, whether it's the therapist or your special education teacher, or even the principal, whoever it is, because I know folks have gotten communication from different people, that we're able to give updates, right? And even if that doesn't feel like you're getting a response right now, or that action is being taken, just opening the lines of communication to say, we're having a really hard time with the device, or I can't get, this modified thing to work at home. So that we're opening those lines of communication again, because I think a lot of folks are talking about the need for compensatory services, or basically, hey, let's make up services once we come back. But the very first thing before fast forwarding to that is getting a really good sense of what is and what is not working. And so the more we communicate, whether that's very much texting with the teacher, whatever that communication is, and then of course knowing, I know there's some families that have some uncertainty about whether they can be scheduling an ARD meeting right now, and you absolutely can and should if you would like to do one. And there's a lot more that we can talk about, but I want to be mindful of time. So we are, and Timmy, if you'll go to the next slide, that'd be great. Thanks.
And this is Sonia with a quick reminder to please mute your lines if you are not speaking. Thank you so much.
Awesome, thanks. I'm very surprised that there's very little pets on the screen. Side note. So as I mentioned, that was a very brief update. And I know what we're trying to be really mindful of, especially as we're talking directly with families, is that taking a bite, like little tiny bites of this, because it can feel so overwhelming of like, I have to do all of these things now in order to ensure that my kiddos' services are working or not working. And so what we're trying to do is just giving families 4 strategies and letting them feel like they're strategies that are equitable and accessible. They're not strategies that require some type of fancy advocacy understanding, but just what is it that I have within my power to understand and know so that I can get a better sense of how to support my child. So we're going to be doing some workshops next week. These intentionally, I just included the slides that are in English, but we're doing these in Spanish as well. And families just need to register. They're going to be recorded. So of course, anyone can watch them at any time. But to get more information on the workshops, you can just register yourself on our website. There's a new part of our menu that says virtual programs. So you can register yourself. You can follow us on Facebook, VELA Families, and the events are there. So you can just register. It'll be a Zoom like this. We have really pushed to make these interactive so that families are not getting a lecture style like I'm doing to you guys right now. VELA, we really pride ourselves on interactive learning. And so we are using all of the fancy tools that Zoom has to offer to make sure that it's conversational, that we're breaking into small groups. So folks are really getting not just a sense of knowledge and resources, but community. That's it for me. I'm gonna share some information in the chat just in terms of links that you can go to register, but I will kick it back to Deb.
And I'd like to just take a quick moment so if you'll get back to the slide 6, I want to introduce Lisa Flores as well from Coalition for Special Education Equity and AISD. Lisa is, if you know her, a superhero, as is Maria. And she works for Easter Seals and she does trainings in Spanish and in English. And she is on a TEA committee around special education and on a bunch of other committees. As is Maria on the district special ed advisory committee. But Maria, Lisa, if you will just sort of introduce yourself to everyone, because I hope Lisa will jump in and share thoughts throughout.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Flores. I am a volunteer with the Coalition for Special Education Equity and AISD. I also work for Easter Seals as an advocacy specialist, a bilingual advocacy specialist, as Deborah said, and I like to support families and try to empower others with trainings. My trainings are not as intensive or long as VELA's, but they will be informative and meant to give information in a way that it's very understandable. I also am really excited to have this coalition where educators and parents and everybody's sort of working together to improve special education in Austin, to have better communication, more inclusive practices. It's a huge passion of mine, and yeah, that's who I am. Deborah, did you want me to go over special education concerns, or do you want to do that?
Oh, well, yeah, let me run through these because these are my notes, but if you will jump in.
Sure. I wanted to add one important thing to what we're doing about documentation, if you'll allow me. Like, it's really important to keep notes of some kind over what you're experiencing and how your student is doing, both functionally and academically. These are really difficult times, and nobody is expected to be a superhero and be able to do everything. But it is really important to sort of document the day-to-day of how your student is doing, because it will change and fluctuate. I found a completely blank planner that was my son's that I've been utilizing, that has the date and it has each subject, which is helpful to me. But I've also learned that some families have utilized short videos or photographs to just keep track, which I thought also was a really great idea, to take short videos so you can actually have show how your student is performing, or how they're doing virtual learning, or how they're working, or what works or does not work for them. So I just thought I would offer that small tip. And I also wanted to add that I am working on updated training, and hopefully ACPTA and CSEE will share those links as I have trainings available too. Hopefully as interactive too. But yeah, that's all I have. Sorry, I'm terrible at Zoom. Forgive me.
Y'all are fabulous, and that we have these resources locally is so great, and everybody should take advantage of these folks because they're full of knowledge. I wanted to lay out some of the things that we've identified as some kind of specific concerns to sort of have the Director of Special Education talk to us about where AISD is and where we're going. But from our point of view, I wanted to sort of articulate the world as we see it from the multiple sources that we're in touch with and from our own experience as parents of kids in special education. First, compassion. Despite the stress and anxiety, parents of kids in special education have expressed overwhelming love and concern for teachers. That's our baseline, as well as gratefulness for the meals and support they're receiving from AISD. There's universal recognition from advocates, from parents, lawyers. I was on a call with lawyers that all kids with IEPs cannot get all that they are entitled to in their IEPs under the current circumstances. It's just not possible. We all understand that. So, you know, that's a baseline. And we understand that teachers, many of them have kids at home, or there are lots of other challenges to the situation. Everybody gets that. So let's just start with that. Okay, but we do have some concerns, and we want to kind of tick through them. First is about communications. This is a consistent problem in AISD for many of us. And I've been on some calls about this as well. It's not specific to special education, but it's also impacting us in special education. And that is that the communication is primarily dependent upon the principal and the principal's desire, willingness, or ability to communicate to parents. So some of us I have kids in 4 schools. We see really different communications, and we get different pieces of information. Rather than a specific directive from the top in AISD to principals, we need you to communicate 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, not communicate with your campuses. We think you know how best to do that. That's resulting in a great deal of inequity and lack of information depending on where you are. So that's the first one. Question, is there an email list for all special education 504 parents? If not, we request that and we say that because we didn't get communications about special education, and we didn't know what the situation was. And for instance, to get a copy of the special education director's newsletter, we had to go onto the web, know that she had issued one, go to the website and sign up for it. So what we're asking is if there's a way to just send emails to all special education /504 parents, including that kind of communication. And if not, that those communications about special education go to all parents in the district. What we saw were communications from the whole district about a whole series of topics. And we saw no mention of special education for a while, and then minor mention. Lisa, jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I don't want to pick on AISD, but definitely there's a theme of just sort of the overwhelming communication is not inclusive, right? There's a dichotomy. There's 2 different vehicles to communicate with parents. If you'll notice, a lot of parents got a lot of communications from the superintendent and from campuses. There was mostly around virtual learning for general ed students. But then the communication that was specific to special education was uploaded to the website, and if you saw it, you saw it. And I think that perhaps it'd be worth examining a paradigm shift of ending the practice of that dichotomy and just consider it, not having. It is okay if general education parents get a communication about special ed. They can just delete it. But I think it is a more inclusive practice to start by default to communicate to all than it is to try to say, well, this is only for this population. So I think it would be really positive to consider paradigm shifts, whoever is doing communications at high levels or at campus levels, to say, are we including everyone? Specifically, are we including special education students? And if the answer is no, perhaps reach out to community members and see and get guidance, because I'm not blaming everybody. You don't know what you don't know, but there is a consistent void in communication that is inclusive.
So the next one is that special education teachers are not getting direct communication from the special education department. So specialists that are under the communication from the director are getting regular communications, but teachers on campuses are getting direct communication only from their principals about special education issues. So there's a telephone game happening and a lack of consistent communication. And this is the same thing parents are experiencing. If it's up to your principal to tell you what they think is important or to dig through their emails and forward the relevant thing to you, there's a break. The next one is a concern that itinerant staff, therapists were directed not to contact parents post-break. This was very frustrating when parents were concerned about their kids getting therapies and not understanding that the message to the therapist was, do not reach out to parents. So just raising that. Okay, next slide. That what we would recommend that there have been a direction to all case managers to evaluate IEP time requirements and propose a schedule in order to satisfy IEP requirements. I've talked to several special education teachers about what they were supposed to be doing, and they didn't seem to get a clear direction around, look at your IEPs, look at the minutes that are supposed to be provided to students, come up with a game plan for how you will attempt to do these minutes. We get, you only have X amount of time in the day. Some of those minutes might have been for kids to get some kind of service in a group based on staffing, but basically do a spreadsheet, look at the numbers, and actually attempt to offer services. And our understanding is that's never been something directed to the case manager. So those are the folder teachers. The other piece about case managers is that it seems to have been, for a couple of weeks, no case managers were not directed to contact every parent on their list. It wasn't until the last 2 weeks that it seems case managers got the word, reach out to all the parents. I had a case manager tell me that she was told only to reach out to my son. Well, my son has special needs and deleted her email, didn't even know who she was. The parents need to be communicated with by case managers to see how we're doing, to figure out what we need if we're going to accommodate IEPs. Lisa.
I wanted to add too that the guidance from TEA around communication has stressed over and over and over again, clear, collaborative communication with parents. It's gone as far as, I mean, I've heard Dr. Porter say that not having clear communication with parents is actually like opening you up to more legal liability. So really the TEA has stressed time and time again to school districts clear collaborative communication with parents. And I'm not sure that was achieved here. I also wanted to add that as a parent, it's hurtful when connection and like SEL is stressed in public, but behind the scenes, there's parents like me who haven't heard anything from anybody and their student is not connected. There's a real disconnect in access to connection that is a disparity.
Lisa, and Deb, can I interrupt real quick right now and allow perhaps Dr. Hickman to chime in and join in on this conversation?
No, we've got like, I just have to make these four more points and then she's up.
Perfect. Yep. Thanks, Deb. Thank you.
I'm just afraid we're going to lose her. Okay, but go for it.
Thanks.
Well, but she's got somebody else stepping in, I guess, if not. So another thing is that there was no universal design for learning as part of the training that teachers received in the 2 weeks of training post spring break. this sort of shows where we are in AISD. We don't think inclusion on the front end. We're not thinking about special education on the front end, and general education teachers been given no direction about how they're supposed to accommodate students with special needs. So that's a real problem. Even with technology, due to little or no direct support, some kids are getting little or no instruction. That's certainly true of my son. And there's a great need, and this is really for all the parents on the call, for compensatory services post-COVID. Your students, by law, are supposed to be receiving what is in their IEP. The documentation that Maria and Lisa talked about sort of tells us what's going on and what they're getting and what they're doing. We're gonna really need all of us to look at how do we bring them back. And of course, that's gonna be true for general ed kids too, but it's acutely a problem when they're not able to get the education based on the lack of accommodations in the COVID era. So that's going to be something we're all going to need to focus on, and it's going to be a big thing that the district's going to have to address. With that, Dr. Hickman, we're grateful for you joining us and members of your team. We hope that you will share with us where things are and thoughts about any of this stuff that we've discussed. I think we'll be sharing out this slideshow with everyone so you can have all these points. But take it away, and then I think, you know, folks, after she's talked for a bit, we'll do Q&A with her. Okay. While we've got it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys, and I acknowledge that there have been some delay in some starts in which the district returned to school on the 23rd, I think, of March after the spring break. And if you don't mind, I can address each one of your concerns as you have them noted and provide you some feedback and information that may provide you some context and provide you some facts related to some of the information shared. Most importantly, we do welcome this type of collaboration and communication with families and the community, which is why initially we did not have a listserv, and I wanted the memo to go out to all the families, and I was working really hard to get it out and was working with our communications department, and they determined that posting it on the district's webpage would be the way to communicate. And I do acknowledge that that was not the way I wanted it to be, and it was not the way we've been moving forward. We do have a listserv, and we sent email. The first newsletter went out to more than 8,000 parents. I met last week with someone from a group of people from the ACPTA and acknowledged that we are missing numerous email addresses for about 1,400 families that we don't have an email address for. We reached out to teachers and asked them, because sometimes teachers have information that's not in the system, that they could provide us so that we could ensure that information was being distributed widespread. And also we opened up a Facebook page and started a Twitter account and started moving in a different direction to try to blast communication even beyond. And I asked the ACPTA to use whatever resources available to them to help us communicate with the community and ask families to update their information and call in and tell us new phone numbers and information that would assist us in communicating widely to all families. That is underway. So do you mind going back to your PowerPoint? I'll address your issues as you noted them.
So I think if you'll just move us back to slide 6, Sonia. I think it was 6, the first one.
It's important to know that initially, upon return from the spring break, the district was in a status of planning. And so special ed students are gen ed students first. And so until the district makes an announcement as to how we're going to move forward, special ed was in a planning mode. And honestly, we worked on several plans so that the moment a decision was made, we could immediately move into action. And that was my letter to all, was to say, we're working on something, you're not forgotten, we're here with you. And I acknowledge that this is a different paradigm shift. This has been complex for all involved. And I'm not sure who all is on this call to speak to principals and how they're directed, but I will most certainly communicate your concerns about principals and how they communicate to make sure ultimately principals in our district, teachers are directly report to them. So communication and expectations for staff on the campus always travels first through principals. But we have not excluded communication with teachers, and we hold a weekly meeting with teachers. We never gave a directive to anyone not to contact parents. In fact, I sent a separate email because of my concern with hearing this, but I'm not hearing who exactly, and only here and there, and now hearing it here, made it more significant for me to send a directive email to say, when we're talking about serving students, there is not a divide that we don't serve students with disabilities. When the announcement came that instruction would happen on April 6th, that was for everyone. And prior to April 6th, teachers were required and therapists to contact families. They were asked not to have ARD meetings and communicate the district's position because we were waiting on guidance from our superintendent. And so we had several emails coming in from different vendors giving perspectives of how things should be done. We wanted to ensure that we gave a firm, true answer that would be a responsibility of the district to implement and not have several different sources of information that were inaccurate going out to the community and families having to withdraw that information. So they were never directed not to contact families. We asked them not to communicate or interpret how the district would respond and to wait on guidance from the special ed office. We are consistently communicating with teachers. Teachers have always maintained direct communication with coordinators and with the administrative supervisors that support them. That has been a constant communication that has been happening pre-COVID-19, and we're continuing that communication with teachers every Wednesday. And in between, our coordinators and administrative supervisors have identified office hours and set up a link that teachers can click on and have immediately in-person feedback from a district level special ed leader. So that is available for all of our teachers. Our special ed teachers are also considered case managers because they manage the services of the students. And so if there's a need for a gen ed teacher to have direct communication with special ed, that exists for them as well. So this is not an exclusive for special ed, but our streamline of communication does start with principals and then teachers. That's all on that slide. And I don't want to, when I say special ed, we're also doing closely matching everything we're doing for special ed to 504 to the extent that it aligns with the law. So we're doing all of those same things with 504. There's a 504 parent newsletter. I also connected with the SEL department to provide a newsletter regarding supports and strategies for social emotional learning, because I was very much aware that this was a change for everyone and in their homes. And I wanted us to be supportive of families in the process. The time requirements, and ultimately, we at the district level provide an infrastructure for operations and providing the law and the guidance around how Austin ISD operates. And that still is in your procedural safeguards are intact. The laws regarding IDEA have not been wavered. And as you stated at the outset of your meeting here, that there's some acknowledgement that under certain circumstances, some things we're not going to be able to do in a remote environment. But teachers in collaboration with parents and service providers in collaboration with parents through the ARD process are told to collaborate how the continuity plans work. TEA told us we didn't have to do them, and we needed to provide notice to parents on how IEPs would be implemented, but there was not a direct guidance telling people exactly you're not supposed to do this or do that regarding time, because the IEP pretty clearly drives what students needs. And then also, as you stated earlier on, looking at present levels and what students need. We really and truly want to leave those conversations to those people that are part of the ARD committee and not a district level directive that you're to provide this much time. That is not how we've operated, and we're really able to help and support teachers and principals and families if there's some need to further discuss the time requirement need. We have been working all year through Goldbook, and Goldbook is designed using the theoretical premise on the empirical research behind universal design for learning. All of the strategies that are available to all of our teachers are based on those concepts. That purchase for Goldbook was not exclusive to special ed, but also included general ed and 504. So that information is still available for teachers, and it guides through lessons. We have videos and support as well to assist teachers in ensuring that we're looking at the way lessons are presented, the different strategies in presentation, and different strategies in how students are provided services. Even more, it is important under IDEA that we provide evidence-based interventions and strategies. So we wanted to ensure that in the remote setting, we provided more strategies and more options for teachers to utilize that fall aligned with evidence-based practices. So that's where we brought in iExcel, and we expanded our use of TeachTown and expanded the use of ULS. And those are all there, but we made it very clear to teachers that we're not directing you what to use. We're giving you resources, and you are to look at the student's IEP. These are individualized needs, and we are continuously supporting staff and ensuring that students have individualized needs being met. And then there are cases where we have to go and support teachers individually, and we're there for that. That's what our support services offer. Our general ed teachers are given information about accommodating students, but again, that is through the information that's provided through the case managers. And then they are required to provide the training and support to the general education teachers. Little notes. The technology portion here that I'm reading regarding some kids with IEPs are given a little to no instruction. That is most certainly part of what I really wanted to capture with asking our parents to complete a survey. When I have seen where some teachers have been doing very good work, have been supporting students, and then there are reports that things are not going as planned or as expected. And for that reason, it's very difficult for us to go and find that without that information of knowing which campuses to own and offer support. It's not about I got you, it's not about anything more than making sure children receive what they need in a timely manner and what is appropriate for them. And so those are our actions to answer your questions. We're working further in this process to include. We've done a couple changes in how we've offered information. One is I've outsourced every translation. We were doing most of those in-house, and I was not satisfied as the time and turnaround. So now all of those are being outsourced so that we can get them in a timely manner. We have a parent dashboard that we're creating, and we're having to create it in English and Spanish and have it available. Our plan was to have it released today. And so we're still working to have all the resources that are available in English available for parents in Spanish, and then more languages as well. We have a large population of families that speak Vietnamese and Arabic and numerous other languages, and we want to support them all. And I heard your conversation about the notebook. And I had an opportunity earlier last week to meet with Ms. Hernandez, because I wanted to connect with VELA and talk about what we're doing to support families. And what we can do also, we have a journal guide document that helps families pretty much detail the types of things that are happening with their student, more of a tracking. It gives you some framework on how to keep those records and document, because it is important to have that information. You're an active member of the ARD meeting. You are a collaborator. You bring data, and it's there for us to consider. And we want that information and feedback. That is essential. What I wanted to do also is ensure that we're able to provide services to the extent possible without making parents teachers of the IEP. And so we are definitely knowing that because you're physically in the home with students, we're needing some support from families, but we've been mindful of that in the process to make it very clear to our instructors that this is not a situation where we're just relying on families. We really are part of this process.
Excuse me, Dr. Hickman. I'm so sorry to interrupt. This is Sonia from ACPTA. We love what you are sharing and would love to keep going. And I'm also thinking about time and wondering if we could also maybe in a few more minutes open it up for questions. And I so apologize for interrupting you. Is that okay to do in a couple minutes?
That is fine. I mean, you can, I wanted to make sure I captured directly answers there. I also want to make sure that I'm able to give you guys facts and help you understand some of the context of what's happening. And that I want to also ensure that you know that what we're doing, everyone, the teachers, the service providers, we're all the district. And so the district is working to serve students. We're working really hard, and we know that we have some things we need to work on. If it was easy, someone would have already done it. But we're doing it now for the very first time. This is a new experience that we've all embraced, because our whole first goal and priority are the students. And we're trying to make sure that we're bringing those services. And we do know that there are some issues that we need to work through. I do have to know some more specifics from particular campuses. If there's some areas we need to target as far as providing some more specifically and especially design training for those areas, we can address those in that manner too. And again, it's not punitive. It's really about us being able to provide the right type of support. So
Dr. Hickman, thank you so much for your time today and just being here. And again, I think you see some of the chats here that we know you're booked for a few things. So maybe we can open it up for some Q&A right now. And I think I'm going to stop the screen share so we can just see, and maybe we can either put your questions in chat or raise your hand. Let's see how we can monitor some of the questions. Claire, do you have a question there?
Yes, I do. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. Thank you so much for this. And this is really great information. I'm here with Julio, who's 17. Hi. And they're waving at you, buddy. He's a student now at McCallum and Clifton Career. And I didn't hear the whole presentation, but I did want to hear, what is the special ed department and the district continuing to do for equity? Because when we lived in West Austin and Julio started at Hill Elementary, you know, back in 2005, I ended up moving him to a charter school the kindergarten year, because the principal would call me almost daily, you know, isn't there a better school for Julio? Can Julio still be smile and go somewhere else to school? And it was so fatiguing that there's still students in the district, there's still parents in the district that have had those experiences. And I hope that they're less and less. But how is the department in these changing times continuing to work on those equity issues and really working for diversity and, you know, not just of disability, but also of ethnicity, home language, because we do speak Spanish and English at home. And, you know, so that we've got more of these, you know, happy, engaged, going to their class meeting, getting ready for school at 10 a.m. Students that are launching, well now, you know, for, you know, almost to 18 to 21 programs.
Well, first of all, I'd like to apologize to you for your experience not being a good one. It is most certainly my expectation that we change that and make sure that every parent has the opportunity to have an experience that's positive, and that our children with disabilities have the most magical experiences at school. And more importantly, with special ed, I mean, the way special ed is designed is to consider the individual needs of students and to provide for those needs based on those students' unique needs, and so that they can make progress in light of their disability. That is what we're working to do. And I am honest with you to tell you that that change is an abrasion. For me to stand in the strongest stance that children are first, we are going to do what's in the best interest of children, sometimes leads to some of those comments that we're reading about. And that is never going to waver. I've made that very clear from the very beginning that we're looking for the best interest of students, which is why I outsourced our translations, because I wanted to make sure they were moving quickly. Not only that, I wanted to make sure our families are part of the process. That is, it's not the ARD committee and then the parent. The parent is part of the ARD committee. They are crucial and they are part of this process. So I've been providing training to solicit parent input, to ask for parents to come to meetings and share their experiences so that we can work to change them. That is our goal. And those things are being addressed as I know them. I haven't been shy about addressing them aggressively, and that won't stop until we have a clear experience that our children are receiving appropriate educations and it's considering all their individualized needs.
So next we have a question from Lisa Flores, and we also have questions coming in from chat, but Lisa?
Hi, thank you for being here, Dr. Hickman. I really appreciate your time. My question is, the feedback I received was that principals heard again and again the messaging was to concentrate on rolling out virtual learning for general ed students and then to worry about special ed students while we awaited some legal guidance. Would you characterize this as being accurate? And if so, how can we move away from treating students with disabilities as legal burdens and treating parents as potential litigants instead of partners?
Well, what I know is that when I hear we're serving students, that includes every student enrolled in Austin ISD. I did not hear any distinction between the two, special ed student versus gen ed student, because all of our students are our students. As far as what they've said, I'm not sure where that's come from, because that was never said in any meeting or anything written that I have read, nor has come from my office. The only direction that we provided, because when we're looking at how we're going to serve students in the virtual context, we were looking at more than just how we're serving students. It was never questioned that we're going to serve them. The question is, how is the district going to operate? Again, general ed first. So if, and first being all of our students, special ed students are gen ed students. That, and I make that very clear every time I speak to principals, that if we're offering something for gen ed kids, those special ed students have the opportunity to have that too. We just provide specially designed instruction on top of that. And so that has been the conversation that we've had. The only caution we had was that this is going to change how we provide services. And we had hundreds of lawyers and different people sending emails across the district to different people, telling them different ways to do things. Other districts across the state of Texas went on spring break prior to the time we did in Austin. So they were already closed, and there were some things being considered there, which is why I contacted all 8 of the largest districts in Texas and held a meeting with them to try to understand how they were handling this, because Austin is not the same as some of our districts that are very close to us. We're very different. And so looking at other urban sized districts, wanted to know what they were doing and how they were providing support. There were several factors. I don't look at you guys as, or any parent or any situation as a legal burden. There is no such thing, in my opinion. We have to do what's right by children, and that's for all kids. So there's not an extra expectation for a parent who may litigate versus one who won't. We all kids get what is appropriate in my what I push in this district. So what I wanted you to know is that we contacted those districts because we wanted to make sure we were all aligned with their understanding of what needed to be done. But the first understanding was that TEA had to tell us how we characterize education in the context of being in a non-physical format. And so once that was established, because I didn't know what was going, whether they were going to tell us no school at all, school's over, or we're going to move into a different context, which they did. And the moment that they did tell us that, we were ready. We were already working on systems and ways to do things, and we had to make sure that we had those things right the Austin ISD is too large to put out a plan that's inaccurate and then try to pull it back. So we had to move in real time. It may have appeared to others that we weren't doing anything. We were trying to communicate that we're in the process. We're reviewing all of the guidance that's provided, and we created a plan, and we initiated and executed that plan, and it's been pretty smooth. Going through. We do have some hiccups with what I'm hearing from families and community members, and that's what I'm addressing at this time.
I also wanted to follow up with a follow-up question on what you said, that you were soliciting feedback from different families. I just wanted to know how you're choosing those families, or how people can be a part of that.
Was actually whoever called me and talked to me, or if someone said a principal told me we needed to communicate with someone, that was how it happened. We were working through all means and trying to communicate. I told the administrative supervisors, coordinators, if there were families we needed to make contact with. And we did move to our Rosedale families first, the families that were there. When Dr. Cruz started talking to me, it was on March 12th, I'm sorry. It was right before the day we closed. And when I got in the room, first thing I said is, hey, we have students who are medically fragile and we need to consider them. And that became the top priority of the district. So that happened first. And we wanted to make sure we reached out to those families and tried to ensure. And my understanding is that Ms. Dickey did that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And this is Sonia again, ACPTA, one of the ACPTA hosts. I want to honor time. So what I'm going to propose is, it's almost 2 o'clock. Whoever can stay, please stay. And Dr. Hickman, we know you are also busy, but if you can stay, we would love it. But no, if you can't, Timmy is going to make a couple announcements. So if you need to go, go. There's so many questions and we'll get to them. So I'm going to pass it over to Timmy. And then if you're still here, we'll keep going with the questions.
Sure.
And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lisa, Deb, Maria, Dr. Hickman, for your time and giving your perspective. It sounds like I really do hope a stronger inclusion practice gets established in AISD from all of this conversation. If you guys would like to continue conversations in the future, ACPTA is doing a check-in and connect. Our next one is going to be Wednesday, April 29th in English at 1 p.m. and Friday, May 1st in Spanish at 1 p.m. The topic will be continuous or remote learning. What is that and what could that look like? And then again, in the future, special ed topics, there are so many great questions on here. I would love to have another special ed specific in a check and connect really soon. Hopefully we can get Maria back on. Maybe Lisa, you guys can come back on with us and give us some insight through that too. So thank you guys. I'll stay on and leave the chat room open so we can, do you guys want to do that? Vanessa?
I'd just like to also let you all know, those of you who do have connections with parents with students with special needs, we will be repeating this tomorrow at the same time at 1 o'clock in Spanish, and we'll be facilitating that. And the check-in connects are going to look different than this. This is more of an information session Q&A because we've been hearing a lot, and I so want to thank you, Dr. Hickman, for being on the call, and those of you from AISD that were able to jump on because this was a very last-minute thing. But we have been hearing a lot from our special ed parent community, and we needed to provide them to be seen, because if they're not seen, they don't feel heard. Right. So I want to appreciate you for allowing for this community of organized parents who are supporting special ed equity, and Maria VELA to help us with her expertise as well to help join in on that. So really want to appreciate you for that, and I want this to be an opportunity to open that conversation more as we move into the future and work on solutions. So thank you.
Thank you.
So if anyone has to go, thank you again for coming, but we're going to keep going here. I'm just going to go back to the chat to some of the questions that were sent earlier. And then if some of you also can raise your hands or put in a chat, let's go through. Here's a question. I would like to know what proportionate share services I would like to know about proportionate share services. I would have thought those services would not see a gap in times as they are in a way outsourced services and funding is already established. The AISD contractors, parentheses, service providers, have already been established and the funding secured. Yet I heard no communication and had to reach out many times, which took a month at the detriment to my child to see the services resume. And I still haven't heard if we can recover the month of lost services. Thanks for any help you can provide.
Okay, with proportionate share services, everything, the starting point was getting a platform that was viable for people to provide services. So that was part of some of the delay, even though those are contractors and have, in some cases, are employees that are working to provide proportionate share services. And through our proportionate share agreements, we provide speech and some related services. And so we are working to ensure it's been we needed a enterprise account for Zoom and not the free version, because the free version gave a limitation. I think they removed it when you signed up with your school district's email address. They removed some of that, but we also needed the ability to do some other things to ensure confidentiality in those settings. And so our enterprise accounts are being set up right now, and we've provided those. Every special ed teacher in the district, as well as service provider and evaluator, is getting an enterprise account so that we can start resuming those services over the system. It's just been taking a minute for everyone to get logged in. So they will resume. As far as the recoup time, the services that are required for students is always our effort to provide those as written in the student's IEP.
So next I see another question. What is the expectation for life skills elementary teachers providing instruction during the time of COVID? Is there a requirement for them to provide any synchronous or asynchronous learning?
We have not required them under any particular format other than to utilize the best appropriate practice for their student. And so we provided mail outs for ULS. And because there was, we needed to get information out to families pretty quickly. I think we had about 8,000 packets to go out to families. We're also looking at different ways to access information and get to the students. But there is not a different expectation for life skills teachers than there are for any other teacher of students of children with disabilities. And the expectation is to ensure what's appropriate for each student.
So I don't see any more questions unless others do. Maybe we can I see a lot of gratitude, Dr. Hickman, so maybe you could read through the chat as well. But are there any other questions?
I have one. I understand Dr. Cruz said that he has a cabinet that he's been meeting with that provides him sort of a window into what's going on in the district. And I wanted to ask about what the special education teacher and parent, and I don't know if he has separate teacher and parent or combined cabinets that provide him insight, but I wanted to know more about that and if there wasn't sufficient representation to ask that happen.
Okay, I would have to yield to someone else in the district about his cabinet and how that operates, Ms. Trejo. What I know is that the cabinet that I'm aware of, my associate superintendent, Dr. Lisa Goodnow, sits on that committee and is able to communicate regarding some of the issues surrounding special education. The other part, I will have to ask Mr. Bias or someone else, Ms. Vargas, to follow up on that one.
So another question that's coming in, and if I pass over anyone, please just stop. I'm trying to just stay for the sake of time and honoring people's questions. Here's another one. I would like to know how the privacy of students will be protected in the most recent survey sent to parents.
Okay, I put this week's PLN reiterated privacy of students and confidentiality. In fact, when at the outset of this process, the Human Capital Office provided guidance on how to maintain confidentiality in this COVID-19 crisis that we're managing, and then special ed further required FERPA training, even if people had had it to review it again. And we also covered that again today. What I wanted to ensure is that we communicated explicitly to teachers not to use their personal email addresses, to make sure that they are protecting children information using the BCC functions if necessary, and to ensure that we are maintaining confidentiality. So that was reviewed again today with teachers through our professional learning network environment.
Any other questions being posted? I don't see anyone. Maybe raise a hand or put something in the chat.
I'd like to make one kind of final comment. One is thank you very much for taking the time to be with us and give us a little more insight into what's going on from your end. I do want to emphasize that we think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the district about seeing students with special education on the front end. This week I was on a call with general education teachers who said we still haven't been given any information in how to accommodate our students. So it's true that students with an IEP are gen ed students first and should be, but the problem is if the gen ed student who's providing all their instruction doesn't have any tools, techniques, or direction about how to accommodate students, then they're not being accommodated. And I think it's key that it not be an afterthought, that there be SPED students that are meeting with Dr. Cruz, parents that are meeting with him on a regular basis and providing him insight into what's going on in the district, because there's work to be done. And as a community, we know it's been frustrating for everybody, but it's been especially hard on our students, many of whom, like I was on the Rosedale parent call, many of our students really aren't doing anything and they're having a lot of anxiety, medical issues, stress related, just kind of severe because they don't have the routine and the guidance because they can't accommodate as well in this new COVID world. So I just really want to emphasize that. And we know you're fairly new to the district and we know you believe in students in special education, Dr. Hickman, but we ask that you work with us to push more on inclusion, because the fact that that wasn't part of the training for 2 full weeks is a real, kind of falling down from our point of view, because we think about special education right away. So to me, up above you, they're not in the way that they should be. So I just want to pass those thoughts on.
Thank you for that perspective. I want you guys to know that I'm very vocal and pushy to make sure that our students are served. It may not appear that way, and I really want you to know that I'm fighting hard, and that to make sure that that is initially the first thought is our students with disabilities. I see a chat question about the 60+ kids. I'm not sure what exactly you've been communicated. The caseloads of our speech therapists has been a constant communication. And I need us to understand that our students receive speech therapy in different designs. And those designs are not the same as a classroom teacher who may have 60 kids or 30 kids at a time. Some of our students, when we started to look at specific caseloads, have 2 times in a semester. There are different variations that happen, and we're looking at all of those things and we're working to support. We do need the fairness of our staff to say, this is how I need support. And not that I just have a large number. What can we do to support is what we're moving toward. I needed to communicate with staff, and I needed to know, because generalized statements in a district with more than 170 sites, because I'm not sure that it's clear, we'll say 129 campuses, but we have many more satellite places that we provide services to. So special ed covers almost 170 different locations. And when I'm hearing, I'm not hearing from my family, from my teacher, or I don't know, my whole purpose is to try to narrow down where it is so that we can get the help to the kid immediately. Generalized statements when I talk to the whole, and I have parents saying, yes, I have heard. I've talked to my teacher and my therapist, and then I still hear that people haven't. It's no way for me or my staff to assist if we're not able to really drill down on the particulars of who they are. We're working to support all of our staff. But I would like to ask something from you. And one of those things is for continued support in that understanding that some of the abrasion that you may hear is because I'm pushing to get your children the services that they deserve. And that is not always what's being communicated to you, as I see. But I want to make sure you understand that the district is that way. Dr. Cruz has been totally committed to ensuring that students with disabilities are a priority. I am having to communicate with everyone to make sure that we call them by name. And so that way you'll know that we are considering them and it's identified. But most certainly that has not been a back burner or an afterthought, because I am present to make sure that that's not the case. And I'm working hard. There's still challenges in making sure that that's done, but that is my goal.
So thank you again, Dr. Hickman. I'm going to again minus on our time. We have another, ACPTA has a meeting here in a little while as well. I want to thank you. I sensed a lot of feelings on this call. I know that we're going through not only what's going on outside, but what's going on inside, and we're all going through our own unique experiences. So I want to honor the frustration, the passion that has been on this call. And I want to say and note that I can see that it's coming from the right place, and that is to take care of our kids. And so I just want to thank you all for all the wonderful work and disruption that you're doing to move this into a space of more equity for our children and for our families. And with that, I want to thank you again for opening this door for everyone that hosted on this call, Deb, CSEE, Dr. Hickman, Maria Hernandez, Sonia, and Timmy. And if we could just, thanks again, and Lisa, of course. If we can just make sure that this isn't going to be the end, then we will work collaboratively in some way to continue the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you again so much. Really appreciate you guys.
You all have a great day, and reach out to me if you need something particular, okay?
Thank you
so much.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deb.